The tennis world was still trying to process Alex Eala's heartbreaking first-round exit at the Bad Homburg Open. Just 48 hours after her Cinderella run in Berlin, the Filipina sensation was picked apart by Elise Mertens, who cruised to a 6-3, 6-3 win, her third straight victory over Eala. But as Alex packed her bags and prepared to turn her attention toward Wimbledon, she stayed behind in the players' lounge and watched the woman who had just beaten her step onto center court to face a four-time Grand Slam champion. Naomi Osaka, the former world number one, had arrived in Bad Homburg with something to prove, and what unfolded on the grass in Germany left Alex Eala and the entire tennis world absolutely stunned. How did Osaka turn what looked like a dangerous showdown into a one-sided demolition? And why is everyone calling it the boldest statement of the grass season so far? Bad Homburg, Germany, June 22, 2026. TC Bad Homburg Players Lounge. The match had lasted just 1 hour and 24 minutes, but for Alex Eala, it must have felt far longer. Elise Mertens, the Belgian veteran who had now beaten her 3 times in 3 meetings, had just delivered another lesson in efficiency, precision, and composure. The final score, 6-3, 6-3, told the story perfectly: clinical execution, relentless control, and the kind of calm authority that only comes from years of competing at the highest level. Eala had arrived in Bad Homburg carrying serious momentum. Just days earlier, she had been the breakout story of the Berlin Open, entering as a wild card and tearing through the draw by defeating a world number 2, a former world number 3, and the reigning Queen's Club champion. She had climbed from world number 35 to number 30 in the rankings. She had secured a historic Wimbledon seed, becoming the first Filipina ever to earn a singles seeding at a Grand Slam. Everything seemed to be moving in her favor. But Mertens had other ideas. From the opening point, the world number 24 took complete control. Her timing, her precision, and the experience built over 15 years on tour immediately neutralized Eala's left-handed angles. The movement that had looked so light and effortless in Berlin suddenly seemed heavy. The ground strokes that had frustrated Elena Rybakina just days earlier were now being absorbed, redirected, and sent back with interest. Again and again, Eala was stretched wide, forced off balance, rushed into mistakes, and denied the chance to settle into any rhythm. The first set disappeared in just 32 minutes, 6-3. The second unfolded in much the same way. Mertens broke early to move ahead 3-1. Eala showed her resilience and fought back to level the set at 3-3, but the Belgian answered immediately, rattling off the final 3 games to seal the match. Alex walked off center court with her head held high, but her expression told the real story. She hadn't collapsed. She hadn't played a terrible match. She had simply been outclassed by a player who knew exactly how to dismantle her game. Mertens was now 3-0 against her, with victories in Monaster, Madrid, and now Bad Homburg. Somehow, the Belgian had become a puzzle Eala still couldn't solve, a wall she couldn't yet break through, but Alex didn't leave. Instead of heading back to her hotel room or immediately shifting her focus to Wimbledon, she made her way to the players' lounge. She found a seat near the window overlooking center court and stayed there, because she knew the woman who had just beaten her was about to face an even greater test. Naomi Osaka, 4-time Grand Slam champion and former world number 1, had come to Bad Homburg with unfinished business. After a rain-delayed first-round win over Magdalena Frech, 6-4, 6-1, the Japanese star looked hungry for more. She had been searching for rhythm on grass, and now she had the perfect opportunity to make a statement before Wimbledon. The match was set for center court. The players were moments away from stepping onto the grass, and Alex Eala, still in her practice gear, still processing her own defeat, leaned forward in her seat. She had come to watch the woman who had beaten her face a former world number 1. She had no idea she was about to witness something unforgettable. Bad Homburg, Germany, June 23, 2026. TC Bad Homburg Center Court. The history between Naomi Osaka and Elise Mertens could be summed up in numbers. Osaka led the head-to-head 4-3, a rivalry that had stretched across 5 years, multiple surfaces, and some memorable battles on the WTA Tour. Their first meeting came at the 2021 Australian Open, where Osaka won in straight sets on her way to a 4th Grand Slam title. Their most recent clash had taken place in Toronto, where Mertens emerged victorious in 3 sets, 6-4, 3-6, 6-0. On grass, Osaka had the edge. She had beaten Mertens at Wimbledon in 2022, winning 6-3, 6-2 with the kind of clean, explosive tennis that had once made her nearly untouchable. But that was 4 years ago, and both players had changed since then. Naomi had returned to the tour after the birth of her first child, slowly rediscovering the freedom, joy, and fire that once made her one of the most electrifying players in women's tennis. Earlier in the year, she captured the ASB Classic in Auckland, her first title since becoming a mother. Her ranking had climbed back inside the top 20. More importantly, the confidence that had wavered during her time away from the sport was beginning to return. Mertens, meanwhile, had become the definition of consistency. The Belgian had never cracked the top 10, but she had spent years as a fixture inside the top 20. She had won 20 WTA titles, beaten elite players on every surface, and only hours earlier had dismantled Alex Eala 6-3, 6-3 for her third consecutive win over the Filipina. The contrast in styles made the matchup even more compelling. Osaka was raw power. Her serve was one of the biggest in the women's game, and her ground strokes were flat, violent, and built to rob opponents of time. When she found her rhythm, she could hit through anyone. Mertens was the complete opposite. Her game was built on precision, movement, and her ability to absorb pace before redirecting it with uncanny control. She didn't overpower players, she outmaneuvered them, outlasted them, and gradually took their game apart. On grass, where the ball stays low and points can end in a flash, her style was especially dangerous. The two hadn't played since Toronto. They hadn't met on grass since Wimbledon 2022, and both players knew the Bad Homburg Open was far more than just another tournament. It was the final tune-up before Wimbledon. The stakes were enormous. For Osaka, a win would send a message to the entire field. She needed momentum, she needed belief, she needed proof that she could still beat top players on one of the toughest surfaces in the sport. For Mertens, a victory would be a statement of her own. She had already taken down Alex Eala in the opening round and locked in her Wimbledon seeding, but she wanted more. She wanted to prove she wasn't just reliable, she was a legitimate contender. As the two players walked onto center court, the Bad Homburg crowd rose to its feet. 5,000 fans buzzed with anticipation. The flags in the stands had changed, the energy had shifted, and now chants of Naomi and Elise echoed around the stadium. The battle was about to begin. And in the players' lounge, Alex Eala leaned forward in her chair. She had come to watch the woman who had just beaten her take on a former world number one. She had no idea she was about to watch a complete destruction. Bad Homburg, Germany, June 23, 2026. TC Bad Homburg Center Court. 9:30 p.m., the floodlights burned against the darkening German sky as 5,000 fans packed center court, their voices rising with every passing second of anticipation. On one side stood Elise Mertens, the Belgian veteran who had just dismissed Alex Eala in straight sets to extend her perfect record against the Filipina to 3-0. On the other stood Naomi Osaka, the four-time Grand Slam champion and former world number one, fresh off a commanding 6-4, 6-1 win over Magdalena Frech in the opening round. The head-to-head suggested a rivalry that had always been competitive. Osaka led 4-3 overall, though Mertens had taken their most recent meeting in Toronto. On grass, however, Osaka had already shown she could overwhelm the Belgian. Still, both women understood that history meant nothing once the first ball was struck. And from the very first point, it was obvious Naomi Osaka had stepped onto the court as a completely different force. Her serve, already dangerous in her opening round match, now looked untouchable. Ace after ace exploded off her racket like a warning shot. Her ground strokes were even more devastating, flat, ferocious, and struck with such precision that Mertens barely had time to react. Osaka took the ball early, robbed the Belgian of time, and immediately forced her behind the baseline into positions she rarely occupied. Instead of dictating, Mertens was scrambling. Instead of constructing points, she was simply trying to survive them. The first set quickly turned into a showcase of Osaka's power and control. She attacked relentlessly, pinned Mertens behind the baseline, and never allowed the Belgian to settle into the rhythm that had made her so dangerous against Alex Eala. Every serve game from Osaka felt untouchable. Every return game carried pressure. What had looked on paper like a dangerous battle was rapidly becoming a one-sided statement. This wasn't the long tactical duel many had expected. This was Naomi Osaka walking onto a grass court and ripping the match completely out of Elise Mertens' hands. It was a masterclass. Osaka broke Mertens in the opening game of the match and immediately backed it up with a commanding hold. The Belgian, a 20-time WTA title winner, wasn't about to go down without resistance, but every time she tried to settle, Osaka found another level. The Japanese star was relentless. She attacked off both wings, controlled the center of the court, and never allowed Mertens to establish the rhythm that had made her so dangerous against Alex Eala. When the final point arrived, it felt like the perfect ending to a statement performance. Osaka ripped a forehand winner that clipped the sideline, leaving Mertens lunging helplessly across the grass. Final score, 6-2, 6-3 in just 1 hour and 18 minutes. Naomi Osaka had done it. She had dismantled Elise Mertens in straight sets. She had stormed into the quarterfinals of the Bad Homburg Open. And more importantly, she had sent a message to the rest of the field on grass. Naomi Osaka was back. And in the players' lounge, Alex Eala watched in stunned silence. Bad Homburg, Germany, June 23, 2026. TC Bad Homburg Players' Lounge. The final point had been played. Osaka's forehand had kissed the sideline. Mertens' racket had dropped to her side, and the scoreboard now read 6-2, 6-3. Naomi Osaka had just dismantled the same woman who had dismantled Alex Eala only 24 hours earlier. And Alex sat there, frozen. Her eyes were locked on the screen, but her mind was racing somewhere else. She had come to watch her conqueror face a former world number one. She had expected a battle. She had expected a war. Instead, she had just witnessed a blueprint. Osaka hadn't merely beaten Mertens. She had overpowered her, outplayed her, and stripped away the precision that had made the Belgian look untouchable against Eala. The numbers only reinforced what the eye had already seen. Osaka blasted 8 aces, won 78% of her first serve points, and converted 5 of her 7 breakpoint chances. Mertens, who had looked so sharp and so controlled against Eala, suddenly looked ordinary. And that was the part Alex couldn't stop thinking about. What did this mean? For the past 24 hours, Eala had been replaying her own defeat over and over again. She had gone back through the points that slipped away, studied the patterns, and tried to understand why she still couldn't solve Mertens. The Belgian had beaten her 3 times now, Monaster, Madrid, and Bad Homburg. Every meeting had ended with the same frustration. Every match had left Eala searching for answers. But Osaka had just shown her something important. The wall could be broken. The Japanese star had done what Eala couldn't. She had neutralized Mertens' precision with overwhelming power. She had taken time away from the Belgian, rushed her into uncomfortable positions, and refused to let her dictate the tempo of the match. She didn't wait for openings, she created them. She didn't react, she imposed. And sitting there in the quiet of the players' lounge, Alex Eala began to understand exactly what had gone wrong in her own match. She had been too passive. She had allowed Mertens to control too many of the rallies. She hadn't taken enough risks. She hadn't fully trusted the weight of her own shots. Instead of playing to win, she had spent too many moments playing not to lose. Against a player like Mertens, that was never going to be enough. Her expression slowly shifted from disbelief to reflection. This wasn't just frustration anymore, it was clarity. The lounge was nearly empty now, with only Eala and a few members of her team still sitting there. No one said much. No one really had to. The silence carried its own meaning. Osaka's victory had done more than send her into the quarterfinals. It had handed Eala a lesson in real time. It had shown her the level of conviction, aggression, and trust required to beat a player like Elise Mertens on grass. Later that evening, a reporter approached Eala and asked what she thought of the match. Her answer was brief, calm, and revealing. "Naomi played incredible tennis," Eala said. "She showed me what I need to do next time, not just against Elise, but against everyone." Then she paused, her eyes drifting back toward the now empty court. "I learned more from watching that match than I did from playing mine." It was a powerful admission and an honest one. The tennis world was still buzzing over Naomi Osaka's statement victory, but for Alex Eala, the match had become something else entirely. It was no longer just another result on the draw sheet. It was a lesson. A reminder that the gap between where she was and where she wanted to be still existed, but it was no longer impossible to close. She had seen the formula, she had seen the standard, and now she knew what had to change. Bad Homburg, Germany, June 23, 2026. TC Bad Homburg, the aftermath. The scoreboard still read 6-2, 6-3. Naomi Osaka had dismantled Elise Mertens in straight sets and marched into the quarterfinals of the Bad Homburg Open. But for Alex Eala, who had watched from the players' lounge, the significance of the match ran far deeper than the scoreline. She had come to see her conqueror tested by a former world number one. Instead, she watched the conqueror get taken apart. Osaka had done what Eala had been unable to do in 3 separate attempts. She had taken away Mertens' time, attacked her rhythm, and refused to let the Belgian settle into the kind of measured, controlled tennis that had suffocated Eala. It wasn't just a victory, it was a demonstration. 8 aces, 78% of first serve points won, 5 break points converted from 7 opportunities. Every number pointed to the same conclusion. Osaka had played to win from the very first ball, and that more than anything stayed with Eala. She thought back to her own performance against Mertens. Too cautious, too reactive, not enough belief in her own power, not enough willingness to step in and take control. Watching Osaka had forced her to confront that truth, but it had also given her something equally valuable, a path forward. She would not make that same mistake again. Later that night, when a reporter asked what she had taken from the match, Eala didn't hesitate. "Naomi played incredible tennis," she said. "She showed me what I need to do next time, not just against Elise, but against everyone." Then came the line that said everything. "I learned more from watching that match than I did from playing mine." And maybe that was the real story of the night. Yes, Naomi Osaka had just announced herself as a serious threat heading into Wimbledon. Yes, Elise Mertens had been stopped cold after looking so dangerous just a day earlier. But somewhere in the middle of that, Alex Eala may have found something too: clarity. The grass season rolls on. Wimbledon is coming. And Eala now heads to London carrying not just disappointment, but information. Not just frustration, but motivation. She has another lesson stored away, another layer of experience, and another reason to keep pushing toward the level she knows she can reach. The next match is waiting, and Alex Eala will be ready for it.